Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here today. It's an awesome privilege for our team to share more information about Substance Alchemist with you, the Substance community. In this stream, we are going to demo some key aspects of Alchemist as well as answer questions posted in the chat. But before we get started, I would like to introduce the team members that we have here today. So first, let's talk about the chat. We have with us Vincent Go and Nicolas Liati. So they're going to be answering questions that you guys post in the chat, as well as collecting some questions so that the team can answer them right at the end. And so now let's take a look at the team members that are going to be demonstrating parts of Substance Alchemist. So first thing, I am going to just pass the mic over here to Jeremie.
Hi, everyone. So Jeremie here. I'm in charge of product strategy for game and VFX, and I'll be showing you some cool ways to create materials in Alchemist.
All right, so next we're going to pass the mic over here to Casimir.
So hi, I'm Casimir. I'm based in Montreal with the Montreal office, only 2 people, and I'm actually based in the ArtStation office. That's pretty cool to have the ArtStation team around us. And I'm demo artist for Algorithmic. I'm working here for about maybe 2 years. I used to work in animation before, like on feature film. And yeah, that's about it for me.
All right, thanks, Kaz. And now we have with us Nicolas.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicolas. I'm a part of the Substance Source team, our online library of substance materials. I've got a background in industrial design, and more specifically colors and material design, working with physical materials in companies such as Nokia and Microsoft and ESA.
All right, thank you, Nicolas. Okay, so my name is Wes McDermott, that is, and so I am an integrations product manager. I'll also do some substance training. And so before we jump right into these demos, I want to just first share a little bit about some introduction to Alchemist. So what we're going to do here is just like I said, take a brief introduction into what Substance Alchemist is all about. So Alchemist is an upcoming standalone application that will be part of the Substance ecosystem. It is a next generation tool dedicated to material authoring, exploration, and management. The Substance team believes in choice, artistic freedom, and providing an ecosystem that can be applied to the many different user styles and workflows found in our community. We embrace the different types of artists, use cases, and workflow, and we don't feel that one workflow is better than the other or that one tool can fit the needs of everyone. The Substance ecosystem currently has 3 key pillars. We have Substance Designer for technical artists who are wanting to create node-based procedural materials and tools, work with scans, and fully automate pipeline processes. We have Substance Painter for the artist who wants a flexible layer-based 3D painting tool. There is Substance Source, a vast library of high-quality PBR materials with a mix of procedural and scan-based content. And we now have Substance Alchemist, which is what you guys have all joined us here today to see. And Alchemist, or Substance Alchemist, I'll say, provides a focused, quick, and artist-friendly tool set for creating digital materials. Alchemist provides you with a straightforward tool set for creating original content through material mixing and blending, working with scanned data, as well as providing workflows for managing libraries and creative exploration. With Alchemist, you can create a very high-quality, complex material with just a few simple steps. Alchemist can also be easily extended through filters and generators created in Substance Designer. The key is that you create what you want, how you want, and you don't have to be an expert to use the tool. However, Substance Alchemist toolset is also flexible, providing even the most advanced user with a toolset that can speed up the creation process by getting some of the technical aspects of digital content creation just completely out of the way so that you, the artist, can focus on being creative. Alchemist is accessible, focused, and most important, it's fun to use. So before we get into showcasing some very specific demonstrations, I also want to take just a quick overview of the Substance Alchemist UI. So here we're looking at Substance Alchemist, and I want to talk about the three kind of key aspects of the application. So let me come over here or bring your attention to these tabs we have. So you'll notice we have Explore, Inspire, and Create. So underneath the Explore tab here, you can see we have resources, our base materials. This is like our library. We also have an actual library view here where we can create collections. I have a 3D view. I have a substance loaded. Over here I have some parameters, and I can start to play around with some of these different parameters to preview what this substance material is going to represent for me in terms of a fully realized material. Once I make some changes, I could quickly just create a preset here if I wanted to, just give it a preset name and so on. Here I'll just cancel that for now. We have just a couple basic presets. So if I like a preset, I can just drag and drop this here and save that as part of my collection. So next, we're going to just jump over here to the Inspire tab. And that is where I can come to, well, get inspired, play around, see what I can do here with some different variations of my substance. So here I have my input material. You can see that I have an input image here. Alchemist has extracted some colors from this, and with this I can just generate some variations from this color palette. And so now if we just take a look at some of these variations that were generated from this base image, I can find something that maybe I want to use. Let's go with, this looks pretty cool. Drag and drop this one here into my collection as well. Finally, we're going to take a look over here at the Create tab. So this allows me to start to create all of my content. For example, if I can just come over here and just add a filter, I might add just like a quick snow filter onto here and just edit a few of these properties. Here, let's just adjust this melted snow, something like this. And so again, if I like this, I can save that as part of my collection. So what we're going to do now is jump into some very specific artist-driven workflows, and each of the team members that we have with us today are going to showcase some very specific, let's just say we're going to deep dive into each of these kind of three areas of how you can work with Alchemist. And we're actually going to start here with Jeremie. So let me just set this up. So Jeremie, I'm going to pass the view over to you and let you take it away. Just let us know what you're going to demonstrate.
All right, you should start seeing my screen now, Eve. So what I'm going to be showing you is how to create materials from real-life data. So from typically a photo, and how we can transform that photo into an actual material, add procedural details on top of it, and get to a point where we get a fully tidyable, tweakable PBR material out of this. And then the second part, I'll show you a little surprise, something we haven't shown yet in Substance Alchemist, which is pretty cool. So let me get started. All right, so I'll start with a simple photo. This is a photo found on Google Image from a pavement, and this is going to be the basis for material creation. So I'm just going to drag and drop this into my Alchemist window, and it will automatically tell me that I can apply bitmap to material to it. And so this bitmap to material version that's embedded inside of Alchemist is an improved version of bitmap to material free, and Alchemist will actually replace bitmap to material when it's released. And that version is streamlined, the parameters easier to use. The results you get are it's much faster to get the good results. And here I'm just going to tweak it slightly to get the look I want. So right now it's a little too bumpy for me, so I'm just going to reduce here, get a little more details, and just in a few tweaks we can get something that looks really cool. All right. So I have my first part is I created from my image. I created a base color, a normal map, roughness. I made occlusion, height map, and all those different channels that I need for my material. Second step is to make this actually tidyable, because right now we still have some pretty big seams here since it's just a photo. So I'm just going to go in my filters list and grab my tiling filter. And so when I apply this tiling filter, I'm going to have a few options here. And the first one is to be able to crop into my texture to make the tiling a little easier. So in this case, I'm just going to crop it so my it kind of goes in the grout between the tiles here. It will just help me tile it a little easier. And you can see as I move this around, you can see kind of the seams adjusting over here at the same time. So I started adjusting this, so we still have a seam here. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of adjust a little more of the settings I have over here. I'm going to adjust the blurriness, the smoothness, and then I can kind of keep adjusting this and my different parameters until I get something that I'm satisfied with on the tiling side. So I have something that's pretty much tileable now, and now that I have this tileable material, of course there's still lighting information because it was a photo in the first place. So we can use a delighter to get rid of most of that lighting information, because we used that lighting information in the first place to generate, we bitmapped the material, the normal map, but now we want to get rid of it for the final material. So I'm going to go ahead and select delighter. And this is an AI-based delighter that we trained on Substance Source and a lot of library of a lot of materials to recognize what lighting looks like and allow us to remove that lighting. So you can really see that here, all these little small shadows and the occlusion that we have around the tiles, as soon as I apply my delighter, all those are gone, and I end up with an actual albedo that will work much better for my texture. So now I'm going to switch back to just my 3D view, and I'm going to go in my library here. I just want to layer a material on top of my original material. So I'm going to go ahead, grab that mud over here, drag and drop it in the viewport, and that will automatically create a new layer over here that will blend with the underneath, the layer underneath. So now I have my dirt over here. I can change the height offset to have more or less of that blending. Here I want something pretty subtle, so I'm just going to add a little bit of dirt. And I also want that dirt to fit a little better with the color of my pavement. Right now the dirt is a little too saturated. So I can go in my parameters here. I can change the color of the mud. And let's see what we have here. Can I just change the height adjustment, height modulation. So then if I want to add a little more modulation, my dirt was very flat. I can add some little bumps around here and change all that how I want. Change the scale. There we go. And change the color of my dirt to fit a little better. All right. Now I have my dirt in there. I'm going to add some little pebbles. I want this to be a little more detailed, so I'm going to go ahead and go with my stone splatter filter, and that will allow me to splatter little procedural rocks all over my texture. So by default, this is a lot of pebbles. Definitely don't want that many. I'm just going to go ahead, reduce the amount. Again, play a little bit with my my settings here, and my albedo. I'm going to make sure that it actually fits the color in the background. And there we go. I have some nice little pebbles. Just add a little bit of details to my. Now I'm going to add a little bit of water on top of this. And water, I don't want to overdo it because we've seen a lot of materials with pebbles in it, with puddles in it. So I'm just going to want like a tiny little kind of wet pavement look to it, and not too crazy with the water. So that looks good. And then on top of it, I may add a level of dirt. So let's add a little bit of dirt on top. I can change kind of the intensity of the dirt here. I'm going to go with something like this. All right, and like this, I pretty much have my my material ready to go. So one thing I actually want to do is kind of fix some issues in my material. You can see that if I look at it from afar, there is some spots that are very easily recognizable. So if I tile that on the street, for example, it's gonna kind of pop out and be very visible. So I'm gonna try to remove this, and to do that, what I'm gonna do is go in here and add a clone patch tool. And this will allow me to just remove some parts and replace them by others. So I have a little issue here. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to select, for example, this source, and then like I would do in Photoshop, I'm just going to replace this over here. If I look at the output here, you can see that it's basically replacing this part of my texture, and that way I don't have that much of the recognizable pattern on there. Last thing I'm going to do is just an adjustment, and since this was based on a photo, the quality was not the greatest, it was a little blurry. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of sharpening on my albedo. There we go. And my material is pretty much ready to go now. I can still go ahead, tweak all these different things. Maybe I want a little less of that, less of these pebbles. When I'm ready, I can just go ahead, choose to export, and I can export this as a Substance file or a set of bitmaps and then use it anywhere I want. So here in like 5 minutes, I quickly went through just coming from a photograph, making this into a material, adding some procedural details on top of it, and exporting it as a Substance file to be used in Substance Painter, in Maya, Modo, wherever you want to use it. So second thing I wanted to show is I'm going to go ahead here and remove my stack. I'm going to create a new material. Switch to my 3D view only, and I'm going to go ahead in my library and grab this material, which is scan-based material from Substance Source. It's kind of a forest ground. I'm going to adjust a little bit my tiling here. There we go. Cool looking forest ground, but as it's scan-based, it's pretty much static. And in this case, I want to add a little bit of details on top of it that I can tweak to make this a little more lively. So introducing a material splatter, which for now is still work in progress, but will be very soon in the beta of Alchemist. And this will allow me to grab what internally we call micro assets, which are small assets that can be scattered around. And I can just add them to my splatter. And as I add them, you'll see some little objects appearing all around. I'm just going to add all of these here. These guys, and I have these little kind of branches here too. And so as I add them, you can see kind of scattering all around my texture. So right now they're a little flat, so I can just go ahead and in the height over here, I'm just going to increase the height size so you can see kind of them moving up here. Change the offsets, and so now we have all these little shapes kind of scattered around, and I can play with them. For example, I can say maybe in the shape here, I can change the scale of this little scattered object, and I can change their position. As you can see, as I changing the position here, what it does here is it adapts to the geometry underneath. So you can see they kind of like adjust the colors, and they can adjust the rotation as well as they move to really fit and be grounded in the texture underneath. In the base color, I can also match it a little bit because those green leaves kind of stand out a bit. So I can go ahead and do a little bit of matching so that they fit better with the background. And then we have lots of options to make them conform to the background and all sorts of cool stuff. So this is really cool. It just allows you to add all these small details and all that life to the scan material in the first place. And those micro assets are part of tests that we're running right now, internal scans of that type of assets. And the goal is to have at some point in Substance Source collections of these micro assets, which could be twigs, branches, flowers, pretty much anything you could scatter, rocks you could scatter on a surface. So here I have all my my little scattered objects, and I'm going to add, let's say we're going to do like a seasonal material. I'm just going to add a little snow on top of it and increase the smoothness, maybe a little less snow. There we go, and we have like a nice cool kind of winter material. And the cool thing is that the snow is affecting the whole material. I can go back in here and keep on playing with my scatter object, and you can see how the snow will kind of adapt and react to it. So it's really cool to play with. So that's it for my part. I basically wanted to show how you can start from real life assets, photos or scans, and add some procedural details on top of it, add some procedural processes to get to something that's much richer and much more interesting. So with that, I'll pass the microphone to Casimir for the next demo.
All right, so I will share my screen. So let's see. Here we go. I hope everybody can see my screen now. So in this demo, I will show you how you can quickly create two kind of material. And I will have a kind of different approach than Jeremie's one. I will try to do mostly use procedural technique, so procedural material and filters only. I will start with a pavement. So I have a small reference here. I will try to match it. And it's kind of a Parisian pavement like it does, but I will just use procedural material. In this case, I have my collection. I'm in Create tab, of course. Under the stone, I create a collection of stones, and I will grab this one and drop it into my 3D view. And I have my material, and I want to use this material for every tile of my pavement. So what I can do is click on my material. I can tweak some color because, as I said, it's a material coming from source and it's fully procedural. So you can change the random seed, having a kind of variation in the looking of the stone. You can change the roughness and erosion and so on. And maybe I will darken it a bit and desaturate it just a bit. So next, what I want to do is generate a pavement with the stone pattern. What I can do is bring a filter. Someone create from the Alchemist team. It's pretty cool. So it's called a pavement pattern. Still work in progress. We have but it's working pretty well, I think. So as you create that, it will scatter your material, your below material into every tile of the pavement pattern. So it works pretty well. Already you can increase the base material. So I will do that to have kind of a smoother surface for my pavement. And what I can do is change the pattern type. So here I have a bunch of those. We have the herringbone, brushwork. This one is pretty cool to do. And in this example, I will use a European pen. The cool thing about procedural technique is that to create that kind of pattern using an image, make it tileable, it's pretty hard. So with procedural mask generation, you can achieve to have that, and even change how many stone you want. You can have infinite randomization for your material. Here, maybe I have too much destruction. You can change maybe the surface intensity, make it less appear. There is some cool parameter like brick spacing, corner roundness, edge roundness. So I have kind of a better surface for each style. Other thing, the tilt intensity that will make this one is pretty cool. So each tile will have a different angle and direction for their tilt. So it's kind of look more age, more realistic. And you also have random elevation for each tile. So that works pretty well. Now, what can I do is for the joint, the generator just create me a material, but I might want to use a specific one. So let's say I want to use this one instead of the one generated by the pattern generator. So I will grab this one, plug it into the material too, and then say to my generator, okay, I want to use this material instead. And here we go. So start to looking pretty great. I might want some variation for each tile for in the color. So I have a color variation parameters group section, and I might want to desaturate some of them and lighten some of them too. So here we go. I have some subtle variation for my pattern, nice height value, everything's good. And I think, Nicolas, your mic is not mute. I can hear you. I don't know. But anyway, next thing is maybe to increase the scale of my material, because most of the time you have a big surface to cover with that kind of texture. A ground is usually pretty big, so I might don't want to work on a small scale for that. So I will bring the offset filter and double my tiling. Here, I might have too much amplitude, so I can reduce the displacement amplitude for my preview. Here we go. It's look great. Next, let's add some dust splatter. And I will not use it as dust. I might use it for kind of a moss aging feature. So here I have the dust depth. I will reduce it so I can save my, my high frequencies of my material below. Maybe reducing the quantity and change the color, of course, because I want it to be a kind of moss, maybe like that, increasing the lightness and starting to look pretty great. I might want to make them a bit shinier, so I can switch back to my first material, my raw stone material, and lower the roughness a bit, so I have a shinier surface, and then do some variation over the roughness using the dirt filter. So here we go, reducing the dirt quantity, so I have just subtle variation on my roughness value. So start to look pretty great, but again, for production, you might don't want to have as very flat surface. So I can use the height modulation filter that will bring a noise on top of your material. You don't want to use it as a very intense effect, but I will reduce the bump amplitude and either the scale. So it will be very subtle, but it will add some nice variation, especially if you use the water filter. I will use it right now. And let's increase just a bit the bump amplitude, like 0.2, it's great. And for the water, you can see that we have some pods that are submerged, and it is so thanks to the height modulation. So now I can reduce the water level and have some puddles on a specific area. I can still tweak my height modulation and have like infinite variation on my material. And I think it's pretty great for. So another technique to show you how to create complex tileable ground material in a few minutes. And here I will save it under my library. So I can just click this little icon and save it like pavement and click save. So you have to wait a few seconds and then you will have the thumbnails. And what is cool about that is you can clean your stack, work on another project. And if you click back to your library thumbnails, you have your stack back again. And you can tweak again the material and make the changes for your team and then export the material again. So next one, I will try to do a bark. And I will maybe swap from meshes. I will use a cylinder instead. Now I can scroll through my material and start with a bark, very raw bark pine. This one is not fully procedural. I did lie about my intro. There is some random seed, but I don't think that it will change anything. But the cool thing about that is Substance material is we expose and recreate those parameters like the color and the roughness. You can still tweak the roughness of the bark and the color. And here I want to maybe match my reference. So I'll desaturate it a bit and maybe not that greenish and maybe lighten it a bit too. So there you go. I might want to deactivate the shadow because there is some flicking issue. The viewport also is work in progress, so everything will be much better when we will release Alchemist. Now what I want to do, maybe it's match all the mossy ingredient on my bark. We have some very old aged bark, so I might want to bring another material and blend it with my bark. I have a mouse, I can drag and drop it on top. And as Jeremie showed you, all of the material are blended together using the height blend by default. So you can adjust the height offset, of course, for the blending. And in this case, I don't want to use that technique. So we have multiple blending methods: color blend, curvature, ambient occlusion, and you can bring a custom mask if you want. I will use the ambient occlusion because I figure that on my bark it's only on the occluded area. So I can increase the balance to have more of my mouse. What I can do is maybe I have too much high frequencies on my mouse. I can increase the top scale so I don't have those anymore. It's look much better. And now last thing I have to do is change the color. So I can either pick on my screen and find the color I want. There you go, maybe desaturate, readjust the value, and it's much better now. So I start to have some age mossy bark. I might want to use another moss on top, but this one will be more greenish and not ambient occlusion blending, maybe the curvature blend. And in this case, I might want to use a lot of details, so I will use volume details, increasing that a lot and reducing the balance. So I have just subtle spot of moss and maybe increasing the top material scale too. And change the color, lighten it a bit, like so. So I'm pretty okay with that. And now let's try to create that kind of lichen area. And I don't want to erase too many times my mouse, so I will try to find a new one. And in this example, I will use the Substance Share platform. So I don't know if people are aware of it. It's a pretty cool platform where you can share your creation and you can download one made by the community. And everything is free. You have a lot of cool stuff. You have meshes, you have tutorials, smart mask, whatever you want. And here I can search for a mouse. So let's see if someone made a cool mouse. So here there is a mouse, but there is also a ground part, and I might don't want to use that. So let's scroll to the next page. And here, this one looks pretty great. And it was made by Adelphia. And if you look, it's quite match my reference. So I think it's perfect for me. So I can download it. And it's a zip file. That's the power of procedural stuff. You know, file up very, very lightweight. So I will just grab my mouse SBSAR. I have it on my desktop. So as I said, 35 kilobits, pretty lightweight, and dropping it directly into Alchemist. And here we go. I have my mouse. I can now drag and drop it into my bark, and it should work. Yeah, here we go. Height blend. Again, maybe I don't want to use the height blend, and I might reuse the curvature blend, but in this case, I will smooth my mask and reduce the balance a bit. Let's see if I can find what I want. Contrast it a bit more. Yep, there we go. So, okay, I start to have some lichen more intense, and last one, but not least, I think it's a pretty big shape of lichen, the white lichen. And in this case, I will use another filter we have, again, work in progress, the moss splatter. And this one, there is multiple kind of growth method. I will stick to the from bottom and prevent generation on the edges and increasing the spread. So I have a nice variation, maybe not too much, a lot of variation, and increasing the spread again. And again, it's a generator made in Substance Designer, and everything's procedural, which is cool. You can have, again, a lot of new kind of variation for that until, and here I will just desaturate it a bit and lighten again, maybe not too bright. Oh yeah, like so. I think it's looked pretty decent. Let's reactivate the shadow, and I think I did a pretty good job. for creating quickly a bark that match my reference. In Alchemist, it's pretty straightforward, very easy, small stack. I can save it again under my collection, bark, save, and let's wait a few seconds. And here we go. I have my two material. I can export them together as SBS file, SBSAR, or even just texture file. And yeah, that's about it for my part. I will give the mic to Nicolas now.
Thank you, Kaz. Let me just share my screen. Hope everybody can see it. So in this part, I would like to show how to quickly create a digital material from a scan using Substance Alchemist. And in the second part, using the Inspire tab, show you how to generate large numbers of variation and customization of digital materials. And in the final part, going beyond to design materials in digital using the new filters, fully procedural filters made for Substance Alchemist. So let's start with the first part, and in here we will be creating a digital material from a scan. And so here is the examples that we selected for this demo. And what we will do is we will select the different images that we captured from this material, and we will drag and drop it into Substance Alchemist. And this time we will select multi-angle 2 material and click OK. This showcases this typical workflow to go from a physical samples to a digital material when designers and creative need to create a digital version of their physical samples to be applied to their production and products to see how the final product will look like. So here, all the maps have been loaded. I will just quickly show you what I have created, which are the different maps that I need to create a material. And I will go into the roughness, and I noticed that it's a little bit too strong, so I will just adjust that here. And the next step will be using the crop tool to actually select the area which I want to work with in my scan, selecting carefully the zone that I want to actually work with. Here, using the tool to actually frame it and look at how it looks like here. And then I will use the equalizer to actually get rid of some of the color variation that you see, which will be repeating itself across the material. And on the final part, I will then move to the tiling phase, which will enable to create a seamless material. So here I have the tiling tool. I will just reduce it a bit threshold to show you what I'm going to do. And here I will use this gizmo to actually make my material tile by changing the position here and moving it, subtly to get something that looks seamless. And then I will add a little bit of blur here, and then I have a fully tileable material that I can use in my projects. But going beyond, what I would like to do is to probably change the color of the materials, because I may not have the right samples in the right color for my project. And I can also do that using Substance Alchemist by using the color variation tool, which will allow me to actually generate color masks to work selectively on the different colors that I want to apply on my material. So here I select the amount of colors that I want to work with, and here I have control over this attribute separately, and I can create a material in the desired color and go beyond what I have in the physical world here. And of course, when I'm happy with my materials, I can save it to my library. The second part of this demo will be looking at how creating variations of a materials to generate a library or a color palette for a project. And for that, we are going to go into the Inspire tab, and I'm going to load a materials that I've downloaded from Substance Source. And Substance Source is our online library of digital materials in PBR formats. And I've downloaded this material here and placed it into my collection here. So I'm gonna load it to the viewport, adjust slightly the scale so we have a good view on the tiling here. And what we will do now is we'll, using the Inspire tab, be playing with color extraction. In every creative project, what you want to do, adjusting your material to your needs, is to play with inspirational materials, whether they are mood boards or just simply images, to actually customize your materials to a certain atmosphere or a certain context or a certain ambience. And for the purpose of this demo, I've been gathering a set of images. And for instance, this textile here with some colorful printings, I wish for my project to actually adjust the different attributes to the context of a scene, which might be for creating a printed pattern for a cushion here. So what I will do is I will drag and drop the image into Substance Alchemist, and Alchemist will extract the colors based on different modes, and I can select the different ways Alchemist will be extracting the colors for me. And from those extracted colors, I can just simply generate variations, which will be fitting into my environment. And I can do that with many different sources for many different types of projects, such as a photo that I may have taken into the streets, and I like the combinations of colors, and putting it into Substance Alchemist enables me to actually generate variation and see how the combination of colors can work based on a specific context. That's about it for this workflow, but I wanted to show you another opportunity that you have with Substance Alchemist in generating variation is creating color palettes. Creating color palettes for a range of products. And with Substance Alchemist, you have the opportunity to actually extract very quickly large numbers of color based on inspiration, trends, and different colors. And most of my projects, extracting and creating color palettes is starting from a mood board. So a composition of images to actually express an idea, create an atmosphere. And so what I would like is to go from this inspiration image to a selection of different colors that I could work with into my project. So what I will do is do exactly the same. Drag and drop the image into Substance Alchemist, select the amount of colors I can extract. And in these examples, we can, by using this one preset per extracted color, actually create a preset per color extracted and generate very quickly a large numbers of variation of my materials based on the color I extracted from the mood board. And I can also actually adjust the way I extract color to extract more colors and complete my library. And then when I'm happy with the materials, I can just select the specific variation that I like and compose a palette from it. This concludes this phase, and as a designer, most of the time, what I want to do as well is to challenge materials, because I might be happy with this leather here, but I wanted to generate something that probably doesn't exist and create something new. And we have this opportunity with Substance Alchemist to generate new materials. So I'm going to switch to the Create tab. And what I would like to show you here is the combination of a substance material with the new filters that we've been creating for Substance Alchemist to go beyond and create effects that are useful to create materials for designers and artists. And what I would like to show you specifically today is the perforation filter. What this filter does is it creates and generates a procedural patterns of perforation onto my leather, enabling me to actually create some more complex materials. And I have access to a series of parameters that enables me to make some modification on the shape of the perforation, the amount, the size of the perforation and the grid, and also work on the density of the perforation. But you notice that probably if you want to have complete creative freedom, you want to go into something a little bit more complex. And what you have here is an opportunity here with using scale maps, which is basically driving how you will display your pattern on the material using a bitmap. So here I've been loading an image, which can be a gradient or a specific motif, to actually drive how my patterns of holes will actually be displayed on the materials. And I have specific tools to actually modify slightly what I can do with it. And I can also combine using a mask, which is combining both to create even more complex sets of patterns. And for that, I will just add more repetition to my material. So here I can start blending very complex patterns together to create perforation that actually can have a lot more possibilities of variations and creative possibility indeed to for the users to play with. And I can also adjust the blur here to actually erase or add some more perforation to my materials. And I can also play with the density to actually add some randomness to my pattern. Here we go. And the last element I would like to show is another filters that we are working on right now. And it's a filter that enables you from a single image to simulate embroidery, like the different logos and badges that you can add on the surface of textile. And for that, I will use as a base material a substance source material, which is a jersey fabric. And with that, I will add a custom filter, which is a badge generator. And this will enable me to actually select an image and create an embroidery on the surface of this material. So here we go. I will just adjust slightly the scale of my texture and reduce a little bit displacement. And here you go. And from a single image, What it creates is it creates a procedural pattern simulating the different threads that are composing an embroidery, and I have control if I want to create a single embroidery or an embroidery with an edge and a border. And I have also the possibility to make some modification on the amount of threads, obviously the size of this image and this badge, but also working on different other attributes like the colors of these elements, both the inside and the stroke of it, changing the roughness and perhaps the metallic. And I can do exactly the same thing with the edge, turning it to a different color, perhaps, and making it a little bit more glossy, and doing something completely custom here. What is very interesting with this tool is that you can start to build more complex type of objects like that. And here is another example. By stacking up on top of each other this embroidery badge generators, you can create more complex graphics with the same level of control on every aspect, to changing the color of specific parts, like the blue part here, creating a full custom material. And what it can do as well is add another filter that we've been working on to Substance Alchemist, is a textile wear filter, which enables to actually simulate the weathering of the fabric. And with this filter, you can have control upon the amount of weathering, whether it's the small threads that are pulled out of the weave, control the angle to align that with the fibers somehow, and also have control over the more extreme variations of the weathering, which is basically adding some holes here where the textile has been, worn, till you see some holes and some, distortion of the fibers. And this concludes my part. We've been looking at how to go from physical to digital by processing scan data into digital materials and creating variations using the extraction of color into the Inspired tab of Substance Alchemist, and then going beyond and creating materials and designing materials in digital with the new filters that we are developing for Substance Alchemist. And back to you, Wes.
All right, thank you very much, Nicolas, Jeremie, and Casimir. That was quite amazing to see all of the examples that you guys have been working on. And so one of the other things that we just kind of want to show fairly quickly is just a few fully rendered scenes that were created using, content that was created using Substance Alchemist. So this one here is just a render that was done by one of our internal technical artists. This is from Nicolas Paulhac. And so here we have this image here. This was rendered by Casimir Perez. And so this here is using the materials that we showcased in today's stream. So the materials that Kaz and Jeremie and Nicolas actually created in Alchemist and just rendered these into a scene. And so here you can see just another quick render of the materials. Again, these were exported out of Substance Alchemist and then just used in a scene. And so, one of the things that we really want to focus on here with the stream is just to let everyone just kind of see what it is that we've been working on, what Alchemist is about, and also just to kind of really relay the message about Alchemist being this focused application where it just streamlines and simplifies the creation process. And again, if you look at what we have with the Substance toolset, we have an entire ecosystem of tools that all have their own strengths. And together, when you put all of these applications in one ecosystem, you have this amazing tool set for creating the art that you need. Like we said earlier in the presentation, you have Designer, Substance Designer for creating these procedural-based materials. You have Substance Painter for creating and for painting directly on your 3D mesh. We have Substance Source, and now we have Substance Alchemist. And all of these things coming together produce a full ecosystem of texturing tools. So now what we would like to do, let me just switch my screen here. All right, so now what we'd like to do is just kind of open things up here to the chat. So like I said earlier, we have team members from the Substance team. We have Vincent Go, we have Nicolas Liati, who have been just gathering some questions here in our chat stream. So let me just check and see what we have for that. And let's see here, just bear with me for a moment.
I think there was a question about the AXF file formats, if we support that in Alchemist. And I think we don't support that for the moment, but we are planning to have it and other kind of format too.
Okay, thank you, Kaz. So yeah, just checking with the team, it looks like we didn't really have too many like specifically focused questions. So that's great. What we have just to say is stay tuned, everyone. We have still a lot more to show for GDC. We have Substance Days, so we hope to see many of you there. The Substance Days event, the keynote's being streamed, so if you're not actually there at GDC, you'll be able to watch us through our channel, so stay tuned there. Also, keep an eye out on our Twitter account, Facebook page, as well as keep an eye out for our blog posts, news, and things like that. We still have a lot to share for GDC with Alchemist, as well as Substance Painter as well. So, yep, that's what we have for now, everyone. We just want to sincerely thank you all very much for joining us on this stream. It was actually a lot of fun for us to kind of prep everything this week. Also, want to special thanks to Jeremie, Casimir, Nicolas for joining today on this stream, showcasing all the hard work that you guys have been putting into Alchemist. Also, I'd like to give a very special shout out to the Substance Alchemist development team. So those guys back in France, of course, are always working very, very hard. You know, they can't be on the stream here today, but they are the true wizards behind the magic that we're trying to showcase here. And so again, just special shout out to all you guys back in France. Thank you very much for all the hard work that you do.
Such a great team. So questions are coming. I think we have one about, can you use it on Substance Painter and Designer? Of course, the file format you can export either as simple texture like PNG, TGA, TIFF file, but you can also export, and that's the goal, to have SBSAR and even SBS file. So you might one day, let's see, to have an actual graph and so on. There is also a question, I don't have all.
Yeah, so another question that one of our team members just want us to stress is just to confirm that the outputs that you're seeing here, they do work with UE4 and Unity. So as the team member showed today, you can export textures. You can actually export an SBSAR file directly out of Alchemist. So if you're using one of our free Substance plugins, like for example, the Unity plugin or the UE4 plugin, you can do your work in Alchemist, export that as an SBSAR file, and then load that directly into your engine just using the plugin itself. So with that, I don't think I see any other questions. Do you guys?
There is one that's been coming up about 1,000 times since the beginning, is when is the open beta starting? We can't say it today, but we just want to say to stay tuned. GDC is coming up, and we'll probably have more to share at that time.
Okay, Jeremie, there is another question here on the stone pattern filter. Was that imported, or is that a filter that users can select by default? So was that custom, or is it part of Alchemist? I guess what we could address while we're here is the Alchemist does ship with a set of filters as well.
Yes, the Alchemist Substance Alchemist will ship with a bunch of filters. Most of the stuff you saw today is things that will be embedded by default. but again, it's very open. So anything that's been built in Substance Designer can easily be added to the default Substance Alchemist library. So things that you can find, that you can build yourself, that you can find on Substance Share, on Gumroad, a lot of community-made content will be very easy to plug into Substance Alchemist. And of course, we will, with each new release, add new content and add new features to it.
Okay, so that's awesome. So again, I was mentioning earlier about Substance in this ecosystem and why the tool sets, when they all come together, it creates this powerhouse of a material texturing suite. So you're saying we have Alchemist, which we've been showcasing, but then you can extend this with content created in Substance Designer, or content, like you said, Jeremie, that are a lot of our advanced users are creating through Gumroad and on Substance Share and things like that. So Substance Alchemist can easily be extended.
Yeah, another question, will Alchemist support RGB mask? I think it's a pretty good idea about supporting that, so we'll take note of that.
Ah, cool. And again, another question that comes up quite often, the release date. When is this thing coming out? So again, what we have to say is just tune in for GDC. We'll have more to share at that time. So I think that is everything. So guys, we're going to go ahead and just close out the stream. So thank you all very much. If anybody has any closing words, we'll just kind of post back on everybody. So Jeremie, again, thanks for your presentation. And Casimir?
Yeah, thank you.
And Nicolas?
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Wes. Thank you, everyone who tuned in.
All right, take care. We'll see you at GDC.
See you soon, guys.
See you.
All right.
Bye.